Hello and welcome to our video series on the behaviors in Donald Smith's onion model of culture. The behaviors are actually 12 signal systems, and all human communication, according to Dr. Smith, passes along these 12 systems or through combinations of the systems. In the last video we looked at systems 1, 2, and 3, and today we're going to look at the pictorial, the artifactual, and the audio. Okay? So the pictorial. This is culture in 2D. This is when cultures communicate using pictures. It doesn't get much simpler than that. But what goes in the pictures is really significant. And what they attempt to convey through the pictures. What they use the pictures for and how important the pictures are to them. A couple of points. The idiom that a picture is worth 1,000 words actually has an analog in many cultures. There are a lot of places, a lot of peoples on the planet that consider a visual representation to be more communicative than any number of words. The common themes in a given cultural setting, in a given culture, you'll notice that there are themes that routinely appear in pictures. The ways that something will be advertised will be different, or the pictures that are chosen to provoke certain emotions will be different. I remember one example. It's the story of the prodigal son. And a worker was talking with a guy in Africa about the prodigal son and showed him a picture of like a father with his arms open wide and the son running to the son. And the his African counterpart goes, "Oh my, the father is running to crush his son because he shamed him." Not the point of the story at all, right? So a different picture was chosen of an African man in a nice suit with his hands out, like holding his son's hand as his son knelt before him, and his son is being received. That's a kinesic way of describing being received, but it's all, the picture itself was conveyed to all his African counterparts. That's what it looks like when a father runs to meet his son. I remember moving here and noting how profoundly different all of the advertisements were, even for exactly the same products. One that stands out the most is an advertisement for insurance. It looks exactly like an advertisement in the States for insurance. It might be State Farm or something like that, but there's one picture in the States. There's an insurance company that has an advertisement, a billboard, where there's these hands holding you and your family and your house and your car and keeping it all safe, like a good neighbor. The exact same picture is used here, except the hands are on top, like this. And it says, "We protect you." That communicates a lot. A low power distance culture like the one I come from doesn't want anybody making a ceiling over them or limiting their freedom. They do want to be supported. But a high power distance culture like this one, big brother, people stronger than you and with more resources than you, their job is to protect you by covering you against the chaos and the evil that could happen to you because of Gizmet, because of fate just happening to you. So much is communicated. The exact opposite value set is communicated by just turning the hands over. I have a friend named Mark who worked in Mexico for a long time, and he tells a story. I'm going to get this wrong, but the gist will be right. He tells a story about being involved with some elders and some leaders in Mexico, trying to figure out how to be in decision-making conversations with them. A topic would be brought up, and it would be just barely brought up, just touched. And then so here's that topic. They would talk all around it about many things that relate to it. Many things that relate. Neat, discrete conversations, one after another, never getting to the point. When they had done that, having never actually overtly, explicitly addressed the issue, they were like, "Okay, well, we made a decision, we're done." And Mark would be like, we made a decision? When did we make a decision? In fact, when did we ever talk about the issue? But no one else in the room, none of the other elders or leaders, they didn't feel like they hadn't talked about it. Mark went to some historical cultural site somewhere with some ancient relief pictures, like carved into the stone. And frequently they'd have this pattern to them where there'd be this one dominant central idea of the story, And then there'd be these other pictures that were seemingly unrelated, but when you understood all these pictures by the way they relate to the central picture, then you understood the central picture. That way of thinking about things was conveyed in the picture. And then when Marx saw that this is how large issues are thought about, they're thought about with regard to how other things relate to them, and they come at them from all the sides. They never have to touch the thing in the center because they get it all. He was able, by observing how pictures were used in the culture, he was able to understand something very significant, the matrix for decision making, which is often very difficult to get to in a culture. So that's pictorial, right? Artifactual. So if pictorial is culture in 2D, artifactual is culture in 3D. There are 4 subcategories in Smith's schema of how artifacts are used to convey or to communicate things in a culture. Clothing and jewelry, furnishings, transportation, and significant equipment. So let me give you some examples of how this happens, or how I observe this here, how I experience this here. I struggle, so I've been here lots of years, and I still struggle to dress at the appropriate register, because this is a culture, you'll hear more later on about indirect and direct communication, and about high context, low context, cultural cues, or cultural systems that are high context or low context. And I come from a very low context culture where the meaning of what I want to say is inside of my words. And my value as a person is not reflected in what I look like or how I dress. So that one cultural value has been one of the hardest ones for me to step away from, because here that is simply not the case. Here, I communicate what I think about myself, and what I think about you, and what I think about what we're about to do based on exactly what I wear for the occasion. And the clothing and jewelry that you choose is very significant in conveying whether or not you understand, whether or not you want to identify as part of the community or not. That's the case. That's actually the case everywhere. But the degree of freedom that you have to not do that can be observed by watching whether or not people don't do that. I remember my wife wearing boots, putting boots on because they were cute, like these leather boots that she liked. And she was immediately told, "Oh, you can't wear those yet." And she was like, "Why can't I wear those yet?" And the girl was like, "Well, because they're not wearing those." Who's they? Them. They're not wearing them yet. Somehow everyone knows, you know? And if you were to sit in a park and watch every day the shoes of the women throughout autumn, there would be a moment where instantaneously you would see everyone wearing boots. Lots of people would be wearing boots, and everybody would be okay with it, and be commenting on how nice one another's boots are. How do they do that, and what does that convey about the culture? That conveys a lot about the culture's communality and not individuality. You can catch on to that by watching what they wear and why and when. Furnishings. There's like one main room in every home, and it's a living room, dining room. But it's not like a living room, dining room. It's a living dining room, and the main piece of furniture is the table. Life is executed, everyday life is not primarily executed in that room. It's executed in the kitchen and in the personal rooms, and those don't look the same as the guest room. The guest room isn't where the guest sleeps, it's where you receive guests. So the guest room looks way nicer, both to honor the guest, but also to make you not look bad. And the other rooms don't receive really any attention or money, and they're never shown. Those are kept out of the line of sight, and you're only let into the guest room, the front room. And there's always a table, and so you can expect the hospitality will always be around a meal, and you start to get a sense of this is the way furniture is used here. The chairs aren't comfortable, and everybody might sleep in one bedroom. But what's definitely going to be there is a chandelier, we'll talk more about that later, and a table. It's going to be there because that's the way life happens, and not primarily life among people within a house, but life between people who aren't in the same family. It always happens in that safe front room. We'll talk more about space later too, but that table is a big deal. Transportation. It's shocking how many people drive white SUVs. And when we moved here, it was shocking how many people drove black SUVs. But everybody drives kind of the same cars. And everybody washes their car all the time. All the time. Doesn't matter if it's going to rain or shine. Everybody's washing their car all the time, except me. This is another place, another way that I haven't acculturated well. I haven't adjusted properly. I'm still learning. But everybody washes their car all the time. And when I asked, like, why does everybody wash their car all the time? It's just going to rain, and the drainage systems aren't good, and the dust, it's so dusty here. And so the rain pulls the dust down, puts it all over the ground, puts it all over your car. Like, you wake up and you can't see out your windshield. You wake up and get in your car, you can't see out your windshield because it rained dirt last night. You know, like, why did I wash my car yesterday? Why did everybody wash their car yesterday? When they knew it was, why are we always washing our cars? Why is that happening? And the guy said, well, it's because you don't want to make your city look bad. Well, to who? Well, to each other. We don't want to feel like we live in a dirty place. So wash your car, you dirty American, you know? The way that, what transportation, it isn't just used to move you from place to place. It's also used to communicate what social status you have here and whether or not you're in. You couldn't, whether or not you're like, we want to be part of the community. You couldn't know that unless you had sat and made lots and lots and lots and lots of observations. And also, if you hadn't gone for walks, and like we went for walks, and we noticed that every block there is a fruit stand, there is a beauty salon, there's a barber shop, and there's a car wash. Every block. You will never not find that. It's always the case. As you begin to make those observations and see the frequency of that is literally every block, then you start to get a picture of how much in this culture is going to be communicated by how I look and how my stuff looks. You would either not notice, or you would jump to the conclusion of these people are vain and shallow, which is ungenerous and really kind of silly to come to a conclusion so quickly. Or you could count the car washes in a square kilometer. You know, you could just note how frequently your neighbors wash their cars, or how many cars are at a car wash, which day of the week are the cars at the car wash, how long does it take to wash a car, what's it take to wash a car, how much money does it take to wash a car. You start making those observations and recording them, and you start to be able to paint in your observation journal, which I'll tell you about soon, a composite picture of how that artifact is used to communicate and what it communicates, whether you intend it to or not. Okay, third signal for today, audio. So nonverbals and silence. So sound effects, when people often combine kinesics and paralinguistics. Paralinguistics are things next to words, sound effects. So it's not uncommon for someone to say that that was it. It was over. There's no getting that back, to just go whoosh, like that. There's a flick of the wrist, and there has to be a whoosh, and it conveys the wind that blows it away. That's a signal. And there are other signals similar to that don't convey the same thing. Learning what those signals are, just identifying that those signals are used in place of words, or instead of words, or with words, or how often are they used in place, how often are they used with. Music, like structured sound, structured, not noise, structured sound, but also how do people feel about certain noise, like kids screaming. Do people even notice it? When do people quiet their children from screaming? When do they not? Silence, or its avoidance, its lack. If you go to someone's house here, they will, to be a guest, and they need to go in the kitchen and get something, or even if they don't need to go in the kitchen and get something, they will often also invite someone else that they think shares a similarity with you, and they will turn the TV on pretty loud. Because a silence in a conversation, a dead spot, would communicate something that they don't want to communicate. I don't know, I know what that is, but you might come here and make some observations and not notice. You would be tempted to say, oh, they're afraid of the silence because they're spiritually shallow. Maybe, but what if you just observe and note that silence in social settings is rare, I don't see it frequently, and when I do see it, someone always takes action to make it go away. So you would notice how loud the music is in a restaurant, how long the music plays, whether or not they play it on a loop, what kind of music is played in restaurants, why. How do people look when the music goes out? You start to make observations like that. So today, we talked about the pictorial, the artifactual, and the audio. And in the next video, we'll do 3 more. Thanks.